I've talked to my whole family, I've talked to my husband and made sure that whatever I say is kosher with everybody, that my honesty is the most important part. So we're good.
All right, well, let me do my little spiel here. Hello, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Once again, this is a part of the series I'm doing called Recover Out Loud. Today we are joined by Shantel, and we're talk about a plethora of really cool stuff pertaining to and of or around recovery, addiction, etc. I believe we met a few years back, just briefly, when I was taking some college classes, but we didn't really like pal around or anything. Just
no, you were definitely in my English class for sure. Me and my husband's English class, I believe. So
yeah, and I remember your husband too, but just very like maybe out at the smoker's bench, you know, just but that was so long ago, so I don't really know what I've been up to since then. It's been a long time. So
addiction. We had a baby, got married not too long ago, so I mean it's been pretty decent the past couple years for sure.
And now you have 3 years clean, I believe, right?
Almost 3 years in June.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you. I didn't think I would make it 3 years, but here I am, so I'm not really mad about it.
I know that feeling.
It's been rough, but it's good to have support and people around you that care just as much as you do about your recovery, and being in a safe spot where you're free to feel your feelings and go through it and have people around you who know what you're going through. So that's really important.
100%. That is so important. That's awesome. I'm so happy you have that. All right, I guess this chair is squeaking and it annoys the crap out of me, but I don't have another chair. So, and I have really bad scoliosis, so I can't stay still for very long. So just bear with me.
I don't blame you. You're fine.
So I like to start by asking, what was your drug or drugs of choice?
For me, it was mostly IV meth. So it was kind of everything, but the needles and the meth were kind of where my heart was kind of set for a really long time. For the majority of my addiction, that's where it was.
I can relate. And we already went over how long you've been clean. So what do you think led you to get started? I know it's a progression and stuff, but do you have any like correlations that you'd like to share?
Oh, absolutely. So I kind of want to start by saying, like, I think it's really important for people to know, when you think of drug addicts, you think of people who were born into families of addicts, who have always just been addicts their whole lives. I feel like with me, my story is a little different, as in I was born in a really upper middle class family. My dad was in the Navy, very cookie cutter, nothing wrong. Like, my mom had her little moment back before I was born, and my biological father, who I don't know, he's still kind of in it, but I don't know him. And so everything was really, really good up until I was about, 15. And then I met this guy back home, because I'm from Colorado, but I didn't live there my whole life. And I was in high school and I met this guy, and everything seemed great until he started to like abuse me. It wasn't so bad at first, and then he moved to Colorado with me and my family, and it went from 0 to 100 so fast. Like locking me in closets, like refusing to let me eat, holding like knives to my dog's throat, and like beating me in my sleep for no reason. And my parents kind of knew, but I was telling them it wasn't happening and everything was fine. And I was just faking accidents left and right, so nobody knew what was going on. Because I was young, and I didn't want this whole been with this guy for forever and then not end up marrying him. And in my head, that made sense. I just stayed with him and stuck it out. And finally, I had enough, and I kicked him out. I made him move back home, and I was over it. And not even 2 weeks later, had another guy move into my house because I didn't like to be alone. And that guy was unfortunately addicted to heroin, and I had never done heroin at that point. I'd never done anything at that point. I think I maybe smoked a puff out of a joint one time in high school, or drank once in high school, and that was kind of it. And he was on heroin. It was just a downward spiral after that. Then I met my husband. We were just casually, a Xanax here, smoking weed every day, drinking occasionally, I was 20. And at that point, I had such a sheltered life, I didn't quite know what the world was. And here I'd been with this guy for most of my teen years. I never had that experimental teen phase everybody usually has, because I was trapped in closets and getting my butt beat by some guy that could have cared less. And so once he left, I just went nuts. I think it all started when, besides like the weed occasionally or like a line of coke here and there throughout the year, like it wasn't anything serious. It was just me dabbling and having a little bit of fun, or so I thought. Me and a couple of my really good friends decided we were going to start trying to make music together and have like this band and have all this fun. And it very quickly went from not making any music to snorting meth every night. And I thought at that point I could just stop whenever I wanted to. It was not a big deal. I went from snorting meth to shooting up a lot of meth in the matter of like 3 weeks. It went so fast.
It
was
so
from snorting
fast.
it. Yeah, so quick, from like snorting to smoking to needles involved. And I'm terrified of needles. I don't even know where that came into play. It just so quickly escalated. And I think the turning point was a really, really, really good friend of mine killed himself. And I lost my mind. I completely lost it. And I was high, and I know why I over exaggerated. I like shoved pills down my throat and I was going to end it. I was over it. My husband, thank God, had walked in at that point and was like, "What are you doing? You look crazy." And I knew I was being crazy. And that's when the needles really came in. I think I was just over everything. I didn't care if I was there or not anymore. And unfortunately, that just takes a hold. And I was not caring about those around me. And it's guilt that I deal with every day. My husband wasn't really into it at the time. He knew what I was doing. He would partake occasionally, but he really wasn't trying to do all that. And I brought home the needles one day and I sat there and begged him to shoot up with me. And that's wrong on my end. And I know my mistakes. That was the most wrong thing I could probably do to somebody, was put a needle in somebody else's kid. That's somebody's child. Luckily, we both got sober together and we're fine. And we've talked it out. I've apologized to his parents, but that's awful that the drugs can make you just not care about somebody else's well-being.
Right. Or your own well-being.
No, absolutely. I was living in places I probably shouldn't have. I got myself into things I should have never seen or been involved in. Things that are going to stay with me the rest of my life for sure. You never forget it.
Yeah. But you learn how to live with it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And as much as I hate everything that I did and everything that I saw, it was such a reality check that by the time I got sober, I had matured well more than I needed to become an adult. Because I was so used to my mom and dad taking care of me. I kind of got everything I wanted. I was fine. And I was homeless by choice because I didn't want to bring drugs around my little brother. I didn't want to bring drugs to my parents' house. I didn't want to be high around them. Like, that's awful to see your kid do drugs. And, you know, my brother is a saint. He's the best kid I could possibly imagine. He didn't need to see that. Nobody needed that. So I left because that was, in my head at the time, the right thing to do, was just to leave and do my thing, knowing I wasn't going to quit. Why bring that here? There's still some forgiving that has to be done. And for the most part, we're there, but you never forget. You never forget.
Well, and that's the thing. If you do forget, then you tend to go back.
Yeah. I can never let myself forget what I did,
right,
or what I've seen, or just even the people around me that I still care for so much, but they're not ready as much as I would love for them to be. I would love for all the people I knew back then to be ready to move on. They're not. And it's only getting worse, you know, and that's the reality of it. I've seen more people OD than I'd like to even think about. And, you know, luckily nobody's ever died, but it's still a scary situation to be placed in, to see somebody's life potentially be taken because of something you thought you were just having fun with. And you never know that it's a problem till you sit back and think, oh my God, it's a problem.
You're sitting in a
dingy, you're sitting in a dingy, you know, garage with 50 other people in the same clothes you've been wearing for a week and a half. Nobody's eaten or taken a shower, and you're like, whoa, wait, this might be a problem. I don't think I'm at a point of stopping now. Looking around, and you're just like, it's fine. I'm just going to stay here for a few more days. It's fine. And you forget time. All time is completely lost. You think you've been gone for 3 days, but it's been 3 weeks.
Yeah, tweaker time.
You know, you just disappear. Yeah. You don't ever know where you're at. You never know where anything is. It's a constant state of, oh my God, my heart's beating so bad, like, and hard that I'm dying, but also I need to get more before it stops. It's crazy how quickly it just takes a hold of people. I think a lot of where I stemmed from was abuse and feeling like I just needed to get away. Just never stopped. I didn't feel the need to until I saw myself. You know, I'd always been a really quite bigger girl, and then I was weighing 100 and maybe 20 pounds at the end of it, which I've never been 120 pounds a day in my life. You know, I'd shaved my head completely bald, like to the scalp bald, 120 pounds. I was passing out left and right, like falling, just fainting in the middle of the street from lack of like hydration or sleep or food. And scaring those around me, were the people around me who had been on these drugs way longer than I have, were like, you need to stop. You are scaring us. You need to go get help. You're scaring the people around you. You know, I'm sure it didn't look good to everybody else. I thought I looked fine, but I guess to everybody else I looked pretty bad.
I remember that too. I'd get like super skinny and sunken in, and I'd be like, damn, I look hot. I look good. Let me take a million selfies. And now I look back and I'm like, oh God.
Yeah. Yep, you see your eyes are all huge and you look scary and you're like,
Right.
because that for some reason
Pop
meth
out.
just makes, yeah, you get your collarbones. I never had collarbones and I was like, these are the best collarbones I've ever had. And it's that confidence. You get this weird sense of confidence that you shouldn't have because you're
Arrogant.
on drugs. Yeah, but you're like, damn, I look so good. And
Right.
you don't. You look
Right.
really scary, and it's sad for the people around you. At that point in time, me and my husband, we had broken up. He was over my bowl. He was done. He was like, I gotta go. If I'm going to get any better, we cannot be together. You know, and I was dating people left and right, not because I liked them, but because I felt safer if I wasn't alone. Being a girl in the drug community is really scary,
Yeah.
really scary. There's people who will 100% take advantage of you every time without even thinking about it. So if you have a guy with you, you're less likely to be abused or kidnapped because it happens. So if you have a guy around you, you're safe, you know. And then these guys steal everything you have, you know, ruin your family. It's not worth it. Not worth it.
Yeah, I can relate to a lot of your story. It's I don't know.
It's always hard.
It is. Okay, we got the how and why.
Yeah.
Let's get into the what finally did it for you? What finally made you get clean, and what do you do to maintain your sobriety?
So at this point, I was living in my quote unquote boyfriend's grandparents' house. I thought I was doing better. I wanted to get clean, and so did this guy, apparently. But it was him bringing in ounces of meth continuously anyways. But he brought me a puppy. He like bought this puppy for me, and she was, gosh, maybe 3 weeks old, not old enough to be bought for sure. And here I am high in this house, and there's this tiny puppy who needs me. Like, I have to feed it every couple hours. I have to make sure it's taken care of and warm. And he had left. He had went to go do something. I'm not entirely sure. And a couple of my friends had come over, and we're all sitting down taking care of this puppy. And they're like, you know, dude, you gotta go. Like, I think it's time. This person's not good for you. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I just packed everything I could into like boxes. I didn't grab all my stuff because I couldn't grab all my stuff, but I grabbed what I could. I called my parents. I'm like, I'm leaving. I am done. I want to come home. And so we packed all my stuff up, got the dog, got to my parents' house, and I had called, who's my husband now. I called him and I'm like, look, I miss you. I love you. I got us into this mess and I want to get us out. So you're either coming to my house and getting sober with me. We're just going to lock ourselves in my room, come down together and figure it out from there. And he did. He showed up at my house. And as much as it's not the right way to recover, but it was our way, and I'm okay with that. We did smoke a lot of weed there in the beginning. I was coping with a lot of mental issues and like PTSD that I didn't know how to handle at the time. You know, our bodies had been hurting for months and months of just walking around and not eating anything. I had to completely almost relearn how to eat. And the weed, unfortunately, did help that. I got an appetite back. I was starting to gain weight. I was sleeping properly. I had been so used to not sleeping that I was finally able to like relax and sleep. My muscles didn't hurt. So that I'm grateful for.
It can be a really good
I'm grateful
tool,
that,
especially in the beginning. Like,
yeah,
it really can
you
help
know, and
a
I
lot of
don't
people.
smoke anymore. You know, I used it for its purpose and I'm done.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. It definitely served its purpose in the beginning, you know, and I'm so grateful that my husband chose to do it with me. Not that rehab is a bad thing. Rehab totally works for some people. For me, the power came from knowing that I did it for myself. The power came from knowing that I chose this. I wanted it enough to make it happen. I believed in myself enough to know that I can do this. And it was almost like rehab within myself. And having my husband there felt so much better because I knew I wasn't alone. We had gone through almost everything together at this point. We've been together for 7 years. I had this puppy, you know, and I had to take care of her. And I have my husband and I have to make sure he's on track too. And that sense of responsibility was the only thing I had. If nothing else, I had that. I was very much so, I don't care about myself, and I still struggle with that. But if I have other things to take care of and other things to care about, that pushes me forward. Even with this dog, I didn't need this dog. I have 4 dogs of my own. I didn't need an extra one. She was all I held on to for a really long time. And unfortunately, I had to get rid of her last year, but she definitely served her purpose in symbolizing everything that the sobriety meant to me. I couldn't keep going through it anymore. I couldn't keep watching everything I had get taken from me, people robbing me, having to worry about my health. Even, you know, when there's needles involved, that's a whole other level. Thank God I never caught anything. You know, I never got abscesses, I never got sick, but that was a risk every time.
Yeah, I ended up with hepatitis C and I went into liver failure at one point.
Oh, wow.
I'm cured now, thankfully. I took Epclusa last year and cleared it within 3 months after almost a decade of being sick. So it's really nothing to mess around with. I'm lucky I didn't catch AIDS or something like that. But it was
that was the fear I had, you know?
And
yeah,
at that
absolutely.
point, I didn't care because I hated myself so much. I didn't care.
I could have cared less what anybody did to me, what I did to myself. Even I'm already doing it. What's the point of stopping it? What's the point of like keeping yourself safe? I did my best to not reuse needles or share needles with people, but you never know who will just take something from your bag and put it back. You don't know. People are weird. And that's why now I feel like it's so important for harm reduction tools. You can never make an addict stop. You can't just stop them, but you can give them the tools to make sure they don't spread anything they have or they don't hurt themselves. I relied so heavily on harm reduction centers and towns away from me because our town doesn't have one. My parents didn't like to enable me. My mom didn't like to give me more than a couple bucks at a time, but that's something that my parents were really adamant about. If I'm going to do this, here's $3 for a pack of needles just so you don't hurt yourself. Because there was points in the beginning, because I didn't know what I was doing, where I was covered from like my breasts down to the tips of my fingers with bruises, just bruises as far as like this purple, because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just shoving needles in me for hours until I figured it out. And I look back on all the times that I like posted pictures on Facebook where my family could see it, where there's like tracks everywhere. My grandma has this one picture of the Christmas that I was like peak addiction. I look at that picture and I look so sick and so disgusting. And I can't believe that she would even bother to put that online. You know, it's embarrassing, but at the same time, I see it as that's her grandchild. Of course she'd put that online. She didn't know what was going on.
Right.
She should have, but she's old, you know, she's not going to realize what's happening. Even now, she won't really acknowledge it.
That's common too. I think a lot of our family members, they don't know how to help us. So in their mind, they just ignore it and pretend it's not going on. That's pretty common.
Mean, with my like immediate family, like my parents and stuff, I remember it was, again, peak addiction time, and it was Thanksgiving. And I was like nodding out on a couch somewhere, like coming down, could not keep myself awake. Couldn't do it. And my mom finally came into the living room and yelled at me. She's like, "What is your problem?" And I legit, in front of my whole family, took my shirt off and was like, "This is what's happening. Like, I don't know what to do. This is where I'm at. This is what's going on." I ruined Thanksgiving that year. They just had a complete mental breakdown over it. They already could figure it out. Like, they're not dumb. But seeing me go so crazy, like, and just like, rip my shirt off, you know, I ruined Thanksgiving. That's what these drugs do. You go so nuts. You destroy everything and everybody in your path, and you don't care. Unless you are high, you don't care. It's hard. And it's hard, especially in this community, when you see it happening younger and younger. You know, like I look at my husband who started drinking and smoking weed and like smoking cigarettes at like 13. I can't relate to that. I can't. I lived on a military base my whole life. You know, I smoked weed one time in high school. I drank one time in high school. I started casually smoking cigarettes when I was like 16. But that was the extent of it. Like, it wasn't anything past that. I say that's pretty normal teenage rebellion type stuff. And then I moved here. And I think a lot of it stems from my biological father, unfortunately. I don't know him. When I got back here, I was having some identity issues and I wanted to know my dad, but I couldn't because he was in prison. Didn't know where he was. And I think a lot of that boiled down to me doing drugs to try to find him. That gives somebody a lot of identity issues when you know one part of your family, but you don't know half of who you are. Have no idea besides drugs. That's all I could look at and see was, well, that's the closest I'm ever going to get. I still don't know him. I've still never met him. And I hope that one day when I do, he knows that this is a path that I took and I could get better. So he can do better.
So what do you do to like maintain your sobriety? How do you stay sober?
Well, right now, obviously my daughter, she's 1.5 years old. The thought of losing her, I can't. Like, she is way too important to me. I don't want her to ever have to see me like that. Me and my husband had talked, if one of us was to relapse, what would we do? And that's not a conversation I should have to have, but it is. Because I'm an addict. I need to have a game plan, you know? Obviously, if one of us was to relapse, we'd let the other person go to rehab and figure it out before divorce was even a thing. But I don't even want that to get there. You know, we've cut off every tie we have with people who are still in it, but it's hard for me because I care. You know, I try really hard to give people rides to detox when they need it. I think what a lot keeps me clean is the possibility of creating something bigger here. You know, I hope to go back to school here within a couple months for drug and alcohol abuse counseling. Ideally, I'd like to start a high school for at-risk kids that are specifically on or addicted to drugs. Get something going for them to go to school without feeling judged and to simultaneously get help at the same time. I can't do that if I'm high. I can't start harm reduction centers in our town where we really need it. if I'm high all the time. The plans that I have for my future and my husband's future and even my daughter's future, one day she's gonna have to live in this town. And do I want it to be the town it is now or a town where things are different? I think it's really important that people realize the correlate, like where mental illness is really forefront in addiction. Nobody wakes up one morning and is like, you know what, I think I'm gonna do drugs and be an addict. Nobody wants that. You know, I became an addict because of trauma that I did not know how to handle, did not know what to do with it. And I did one small little thing one time and I was like, oh my goodness, I feel nothing. It's a sense of numbness yet adrenaline at the same time, because I'm running around with all these people who are like hardened criminals doing shady things that I should have never had been out there doing. But it's this weird sense of belonging, sense of community and family that you might not have felt. Or I just think it's really important to know where the beginning and end of addiction is. I feel like the end of addiction is a sense of community with people who want you to be healthy. The end of addiction is the start of healing of trauma and recognizing mental illness where it is. There's no way that you can just go about your life with all these mental illnesses and pretend like they're not happening and push them away. That's what happens, and then you end up on drugs. I can't sit back and watch it anymore. They see these addicts on the street and instantly just put them in jail for what? For having chemical imbalances in their head? Yeah. If they are not robbing somebody or murdering somebody, what's the point of putting them in jail? What is that going to do? Are you offering them help afterwards? Are you making sure that they go to some treatment facility? Are you helping them detox? Or are you leaving them in a cell for 12 hours while they withdraw and possibly have a heart attack? Yeah. You know, there's no in between. It's our community feeling like if we have harm reduction centers, that our town's going to be overrun with drug addicts and that we're only enabling the problem. I can't see it that way.
Statistically speaking, that's just bullshit. It's just
right.
True.
Because you can never stop them, but you can prevent somebody's death. That's somebody's child. That's somebody's brother, sister, aunt, uncle, best friend. That's somebody to somebody.
Right. And ideally, they would be 100% clean and just become productive members of society. But not everybody has the same tools. And I think one thing that people just need to realize is that sometimes harm reduction is better than nothing at all. And sometimes harm reduction is what the person needs to kind of get their bearings and get on their feet so that they can get to the end goal.
Yeah, right. And there's a lot of these harm reduction centers that exclusively, yes, they're harm reduction, but they have on-site counselors at all points of time for the people who are ready to quit. That's at least a start. Even if one person out of 100 is saved, isn't that better than none? I can't think of a better way to help. Our community needs something.
I mean, there is from living in Fremont County for almost 5 years, there is a really great recovery community. There absolutely is. But that's for if you're already clean. There's nothing to bridge the gap.
Yep.
Unless you want to go through drug court, which is basically you're completely controlled by the court system, which a lot of times can just make it so much harder to get anything done because they put so many obstacles. And it's basically blackmail. And I think if you're being blackmailed into doing something, is that even ethical? I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer, and you can't make anybody stay sober if they don't want to be.
Right.
There will always be a way. My parents wanted me to go to rehab. They were going to pay for it. I think being in a whole other, town or state even wouldn't have been good for me. I don't think it would have been good because I wasn't ready yet. They were going to do a conservatorship or something like that, where they kind of take my rights away and they were going to put me in rehab. That would have just pissed me off, to be honest, and I would have left and got a lot worse. I'm glad I did it the way I did because it falls back on me.
Well, and it sounds too like you're very open to, okay, if this doesn't work, then I will try something else. And if that doesn't work, then I will try something else. And I think really that's honestly what's most important is the willingness to keep trying and to be honest with yourself about what is or isn't working. So I think that's
no, absolutely. I have to get up every morning and tell myself, not today. Like, I have to keep moving forward, whether it's a good day or a bad day. And most of the time it's bad days. Unfortunately, I have more bad days than good days. But then I look at my daughter, and is me being high, laying in bed all day, or tweaked out somewhere, not home with her, what's best for her, and is that best for me? Because then I get to miss out, and I don't want to. My biological father missed out on my entire life from start to finish because he couldn't put needles down, because he couldn't stop making meth in sheds in people's backyards and going to prison. Not that he didn't love me, because I believe he loved me, but he loved the drugs a lot more. I can't do that to my kid. I can't do that to my brother. I can't do that to my mom, my dad, my husband. You know, I sat there and proved everybody wrong. Nobody thought, because of how intensely I went from 0 to 100. I went from nothing to all the bad so quickly. Nobody thought I'd ever get sober. They're like, no, not her. She obviously wants this. Why would I prove them right? You know, why would I go back? There's nothing keeping me there. I mean, yeah, I guess I miss having friends. Like, that's not worth it. I have my best friend. I have my husband. I have my daughter. I don't need more than that. And those are people who support me. You know, I still have people hit me up to this day who are like, do you need anything? And I'm like, no, sure don't. You know, I'm good. Thanks though. Like, I don't know what to say to that. And it's such an awkward thing to say to somebody you haven't talked to in forever. You know, hey, I've got this. Do you need any? And I'm like, I've been clean for almost 3 years, buddy. I don't want your stuff. I'm good. I didn't want it the last time or the time before that. What makes you think I want it now? I don't know. I just can't go back. I won't. I can't. I'm too passionate about not. And I think that's what it really boils down to, is I have to put my energy into being sober daily and chase that instead of the high. Right. If that makes any sense at all.
No, it absolutely does. Yeah. I think to anybody who's kind of been there, it does make sense. Which is,
oh yeah, for sure.
7 years later, I have a YouTube channel called A Girl in Recovery, because you constantly have to do something for your recovery, or
and I feel like it's your job as somebody who's recovered to spread that. I feel like it's your job, once you've recovered, to help others think about it.
Right.
Even if they don't do it, but at least plant the seed in a way that is non-judgmental, in a way that is coming from complete love and understanding. For me, I can't go and be evangelical about it, because that just comes off as me being narcissistic. But I have friends that I check in on every once in a while, like, hey, are you good? Do you need anything? When I see a problem, I try to fix it. Or, you know, I have friends who are still using that hit me up for the sole purpose of talking things out. I don't talk to them any other time besides when they're like, you know, I'm thinking about getting sober. And that's when I kind of am like, here's all the information I have. If you want to ride a detox, cool. If you need to go talk to somebody, I will take you. Not a big deal. I think it's everybody's job as a recovered person to show the world what we can be and show other addicts what they can be.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I'm so vocal about my recovery.
Right.
Well, is because, you know, I can't save anybody really, but I can show them that it's possible, and they know where to find me when they're ready.
Yep, absolutely. I feel the same way. You know, I have friends, or not, I can't really say friends, but they're kind of my friends, that show up at my house for, you know, like I said, for water or like a sandwich here and there. They're like, I haven't eaten in days. And I'm like, let me figure that out for you, because I'm not going to watch you starve. I might not give you $20, but I will help you the best way I can without enabling you.
And that's a fine line, but it's such a
fine line. Yeah. Such a fine line. Like, I've had people who are like, I need money to pay a UA. And I'm like, how about this? I will take you to your UA place and I will pay them, and we'll go from there.
Right.
You know, I'm not going to hand you over the $12 to $20 to do it, but I will take you to do it. If it's that important, I can't hand over that amount of money. Like, you know, I was fortunate enough to have a family who, if I needed cigarettes or food or feminine hygiene products, I had that. I could always come home and refill my backpack and leave again. I don't know a lot of other people who have that, what I had. I was really fortunate, you know, to have a family who cared. I got very lucky, but I know a lot of people who aren't. And I think it's important to show a little bit of kindness, because it's not easy.
I'm going to have to round it up pretty soon, but
for sure.
Anything that you want to say to anybody out there that might be struggling or trying to get clean, or just really new and fresh in recovery?
I think a lot of it would be to recognize your trauma and your mental illness and find out where that pain stems from and turn that pain into something good, whether that be art or music or even just hanging out with your kids. Anything is better than where you are or where you have been. It's not easy. It is the absolute hardest thing I've ever in my life had to do. But once you get to that point in recovery, I have never felt more proud of myself. I battled something that takes thousands of lives a day, and I beat that. And I became better than that. I was able to regain trust with my family, with my friends. I have family members tell me they're proud of me. And I've never had that before. And that feeling is better than any high in the entire world. That knowing that the people around you are proud of you, and that you're proud of you. A step at a time, just a step at a time.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Shantel.
Oh, absolutely. No, thank you.
Yeah, tell Brandon I said hi.
I will. He's with the baby.
Okay. I'm really proud of you guys. It's been really awesome. Even just the short time we've been like friends on Facebook watching.
Yeah, for sure. And I hope that this goes well. I hope I gave you enough information.
Oh no, it's perfect. We got it.
Okay.
All right, thank you everybody so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't already, please remember to smash the like button down below for the algorithms. And if you haven't, please do subscribe. And thanks for watching.